Hey Carla, how you doing? Let me know how audio going and stuff. Hi Avian, hi Jazzy. Yes, girl, I know I'm late. Hi Janelle Beth. I clicked on to this thing. You know when you do something for a while, sometimes you just forget some of the you forget some of the steps in the process. So good evening to everybody who has logged in there. I am wondering if it has shown up on YouTube. Good, it's on YouTube because I'm seeing Mr. Cello27. Hi Mr. Cello27. Hi Anderson Goddard. Hi Charmaine. Hi Gary Victor. Hi Mary Francis. Hi Francilla. Nice to see you. Hi, is it Marvin Dowridge? Yes, I saw Marvin. Marvin, how you going? Nice to see you. Hi David Debbie. Yes. Hi Paula, Keon. Oh my goodness, there's so many of you all. I missed you all. I missed you guys. I mean, yes, we were on yes, I was still on, on Facebook, putting up posts on a regular basis, but we haven't been like this. We haven't been together like this in a minute. So it's nice to be back and nice to be up and running. So there is special software that I use to be able to have a virtual studio. And today hi DeBario, today I am setting things back up inside the studio, because of course I can't have the full studio running with everything while I was down, because Starboy and Stella, right, if they just run from room to room to room, and I didn't want a situation where they damaged anything. So today I set things back up. They were actually in the room with me while I was setting things up, and they were just chilling in a corner playing. And I'm there like, okay, so what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do now? So I kept calling tech guy to sort things out. So I'm glad, because I wasn't 100% certain that everything was going to happen on YouTube exactly the way I wanted it to happen on YouTube. So I'm glad that it did. Kyle, like I say, I was wilding on a regular basis. Kyle, I'm not wild. I'm a good girl. I'm the best girl. I'm the goodest girl you know, Kyle. Hi Norris, glad to hear that Trin City is locked on. Hi Banjo, hi Anton, hi Michael, Danny. It's not broadcasting on YouTube as yet, but I'm seeing other persons from YouTube. Hi Terrence, hi Calvin, hi Rhonda. I'm seeing persons who are looking at it from YouTube on this chat thread, because there's like Desta Francis Salazar. She's looking at it on YouTube. Was that Rion? Do I want a dog for the holidays, or you want a dog for the holidays? If you want a dog for the holidays, then, I guess get a dog. Like, you could go to the TTSPCA and rescue a dog. Or you could do like me and buy a dog. Hi, Candace. Yes, Candace is saying that she is on YouTube. Hi, Helen. Good. So, it is nice to see everybody. Hi, Richard, who is watching me from New York. Nice to see all of you. So, I want to start off with some nice news. It's season 7. Can you all believe that? Season 7. As in, it's 7 times I have taken a break and come back and done this since 2020 when we started doing the show. Hi Marie, Starboy and Stella are great. Stella is in the living room playing, and Starboy went for a walk. So Starboy is currently being walked, and Stella is in the living room playing. If I have to get up at any point in time, it's to let her come into the studio, because she might be barking outside the door to get inside. Look, Vonnet boy. So I'm glad that Vonnet is here, because this is the good news I wanted to start off with. So the first thing I wanted to talk about this evening is this, right? 12 and under. So we here in Trinidad and Tobago, I think some of you would all of you should remember 12 and under. Hi Janicia out in St. Kitts Nevis. 12 and under is back, and Vonnet is going to be the host. Yes, Vonnet, of course I have a staff talk. Starboy, what do you mean, Lizard? Starboy is a whole boss, Starboy, all you feel Starboy easy. Starboy gets walked every day of the week. Sometimes I am walking him, and sometimes he has a walker, somebody who walks him. If Starboy does not get his walk, Starboy gets very, very, very upset about not having been walked. So I have to make sure that Starboy gets his walk, so that he He's a happy camper. I need Starboy to be a happy camper. But let's get back to you, Vonette, or let's get back to what you up to. So 12 and under is going to be back. And I think it's great that 12 and under is going to be back because it allows an avenue, an outlet for our young people to be able to show their talent, to have a stage for their talent, to have a spotlight be shed on their talent. So I'm glad to hear that Christoph Braffett and yourself and the team at TTT have come together to bring this thing off. I know it's not you alone, and I don't want to make as if it's you alone. It is an entire team of persons, but you are going to be the face of this show. And you know, I'm glad that you came on because I really wanted to, you know, just to mention it a little bit. So I see Terence Vargas asked me a question. Terence, I have no insides on Budget 2020. What I will say is that Budget 2020 is on. We all know that Budget 2020 is happening September 26th. And that's what, 2 Mondays from now? Not next week, Monday, the following Monday. So Budget 2023, hear me, Budget 2020. Budget 2023 is on September 26th. I have no predictions. I don't know what to expect. Yes, correct, Richard Jobity, 2020, well, for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. So we tend to say Budget 2023. So it's not Budget 20, not Budget 2020, and Budget 2023 coming up. I have no insight on what is going to be in the budget, but I will say this. Given the conversations that we've been seeing the Prime Minister having and the things that we've been hearing the Minister of Finance saying, most recently at the spotlight on the economy, I would imagine that energy prices are certainly going to be focused on in the budget because of what's going on with Ukraine and because of the impact of heightened energy prices on the fuel subsidy. I also imagine that there's going to be a lot more conversation on things like agriculture, manufacturing, and of course roads, because roads and infrastructure, that has been on the tip of everyone's tongue for the last couple months. The last 2 to 3 months I've been the opposition, and rightly so, as part of their job as the opposition to raise issues. They have been beaten a drum about roads and the state of roads and the kind of roads, to the point where it has become pretty much the only thing that the opposition is talking about now. But of course the opposition does do things in cycles, right? So 1 minute it will be the education system, then next minute it will be the healthcare system, then it will be roads. And we will eventually have a conversation here about roads, because I am going to try and get the Minister of Works and Transportation on to do an interview with us, and I'm going to ask him if he can have one of the technocrats, whether it's the chief engineer or the person responsible for highways, on to talk. And I'm also going to invite the Minister of Rural Development, Local Government and Rural Development, to come on and talk about roads and road maintenance, and because you know that road and road maintenance here is a varied thing, is a very textured thing. You have Works and Transportation responsible for some roads. You have local government responsible for some roads. I've heard recently that HDC responsible for some roads, and all kinds of things will be, you know, and who shouldering the responsibility, who not shouldering the responsibility, and then in between that, WASA digging up roads. And of course, I am seeing now that in certain communities, people are going and lighting fires on roads, which will of course lead to destruction of the road. I see Junior Gong saying something about if the oil price remains high. If the oil price remains high, the fuel subsidy remains high. If the oil price goes down, the fuel subsidy also decreases. So I think what happens with the fuel subsidy, if the fuel subsidy gets focused on in the budget, it will be as a result of what energy prices are like. Correct, Terence, a whole new company was being created to deal with roads. And there's a reason a whole new company is being created to deal with roads. As it stands right now, based on what I just said, because it's more than one ministry that is responsible for roads. Yes, Dave Cave, there are some roads that fall under the Housing Development Corporation, believe it or not. Because there are multiple entities that are dealing with roads, you have situations where if an entity is under the control of a political party, and the political party is in opposition, as we have been experiencing here, what we've been seeing is that the political party, or the corporation might decide for political expediency to not do what it is meant to do with respect to maintenance of roads, maintenance of drains. And of course, if you're not maintaining drains and you're not maintaining roads, it makes communities difficult to traverse. So that new road company, based on what I've heard, is supposed to deal with all roads regardless of political party / regional corporation. Give me 2 seconds. Stella wants to come inside. Hang on. Come and say hi to everybody. Come and say hi. Come and say hi to the cameras. Right. So you will get to see Stella briefly. And then I'm going to put her down on the ground so that she could just kind of chill. Right? So, say hi, Stella. So this is Stella Bella, Starboy's latest companion. So she's the newest addition to the household. No, Stella not easy. Stella does run things inside here now. She just has me and Starboy on we toes. Right. Go ahead. Good. So, right. So that is budget 2023. And budget 2023 is on September the 26th. So that is that. What else am I meant to be talking about? I went to an art exhibition yesterday evening. I'm seeing Linton Loftus asking if there wasn't a secondary roads company before Linton. There are a number of companies and entities here that is deal up with roads. And that's why I said I will seek to have a conversation about roads and infrastructure and how we go about repairing roads, the whole process for road and road maintenance here, so that we generally have a better understanding of things. It is not enough for us to just be talking about the road not good and the road not good and the government not fixing roads. And like, I don't want to say that we shouldn't be holding the government to account. Hold the government to account. It's important to hold the government to account. But this is a layered issue, because there are some roads that I have seen be paved. And I will give you an example. There is a stretch of road on the highway just before the University of the West Indies. To the best of my recollection, that strip of highway, that piece of highway has been paved multiple times within the last 10 years. Just within the last 10 years, multiple times there have been paving and periods of paving on that piece of highway just around the University of the West Indies. And every single time more paving takes place in the same area, I'm wondering, what, they paving here again? Here paving again? How here paving again? Like, what went wrong that it needed paving again? So, in my opinion, I think we don't understand entirely who responsible for the various roads, because there are different roads that fall under different entities. I also don't understand what's the criteria for when you're paving roads. Like, to me, different types of roads will need different engineering to take place. So perhaps I need to have a civil engineer come on and talk about road and road construction, and then also have the various ministers that, road repairs and road construction fall under, right? Because it's not now I have questions about road and paving and why you just pave a road and you just pave a road this year and next year the road seems to be falling apart. So that's it for me and complaining about roads for the minute. So I went to an art exhibition yesterday. You all know that the independence celebrations here running all the way down to the 24th of September, right? Republic Day. Meal Fleur. So if you're going around the Savannah at the Magnificent Seven, there's Meal Fleur, which is now under the care of National Trust. There is Stallmeyer's Castle, and there's Whitehall, the Prime Minister's office. Those three historic buildings have an art exhibition free to the public taking place. You only need to ensure that you have your ID to be able to get into Whitehall. Everywhere else you could pretty much just walk in and sign your name, and you could walk around and take a look at the art. What I want to say is the art is amazing. So if you are into visual art, whether it's paintings, sculpture, or copper, the stuff done with copper, please go and take a look at it, because it covers from the 1960s come all the way forward, and you get to see different aspects of Trinidad and Tobago, different cultures, different eras, different periods of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course a range of artists. The display is excellent. It's free, so it's something to do with your family on a Saturday evening or a Sunday evening. I think the exhibitions run from Tuesday to Sunday. Monday it's closed, but it runs on Tuesday to Sunday. Desta, I unfortunately left the pamphlet in a pocket that's in another room, but I feel quite certain if you go and do a search for patriotism on social media, you will find out. If not, I will put afterwards I will after I've done the live, I'll put the information up on Facebook, on my Facebook page, on News Source page, so that you'll know where it's taking place. But it really is amazing. And I think everybody should go and see it. When I went yesterday, there were lots of families, so there were people coming in and checking it out, and enjoy having a good time. One of the interesting things is when you go to Whitehall. When will you reach Whitehall? Make sure and look up as much as possible. The ceilings in Whitehall are amazing. I did not realize that Whitehall was so opulent. So you step in there, and Whitehall really has a very it feels like a really important space. It doesn't just feel historic, it also feels like opulent. There's a tree, a saman tree on the grounds in Whitehall, and the saman tree is 200 years old. So if you go and check out nothing else, go and check out that tree that is 200 years old. Yes, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you very much, Patrice. So 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and it runs on a Sunday as well, I believe. So it starts on a Tuesday and it runs, Sundays is 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you so much. So Tuesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sundays, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And there have been lots of people who have been attending and going and taking it in, either adults or whole families. So go and check it out before it ends. What about parking for the magnificent tree? I parked on the side of the road. All of the streets had parking, but if you want to, by Stallmeyer's Castle has a big car park, right next to Stallmeyer's Castle. What used to be the compound for one of those banks at a point in time. So you could go and park in that car park and then walk. You could walk to Whitehall, you could walk to Stallmeyer's, you could walk to Meal Fleur. I went with friends and they parked by QRC and walked up the road. I parked on Flood Street or some one of those streets, and then we all just kind of met up and we walked from house to house. Jazzy, I am pushing the backs at all. Listen, we're here for a good part of the evening. I have plenty to talk about. So if you want me to rush the brush, Jazzy, I was not a woman just rush the brush. I just take my time and do things. I just get myself all warmed up. So I is not a brush rusher, right? So that's that. What is I want to jump to now? I want to jump to a little video clip. Is it this one? Right. So I'm looking at various news stories, right? So let me just make sure that I give all of the information about this art exhibition. And the reason I'm giving this information about the art exhibition is that I think art is important, and I think us supporting art is important, and I think us going and taking a look at these exhibitions that were wonderfully curated, you all should go and take advantage of it, because it's not like this art going to be available to the public all year long. It's only up until September 24th. Yes, Colin, plenty foreplay. Sometimes, as a female, that's where it is need. So, if all you bought a brush rushing like that's all your business. All you can rush that brush, not me. So let's switch to a little clip from the THA. And we have plenty THA clips that we need to look at this evening, right? Plenty THA clips. But this first clip has to do with the Tobago airport. What happened? Whoops.
Port and the residents that are affected, and number one, we discussed extensively yesterday the matter with the airport and the residents that are affected and that are required to move, and the residents in particular those that receive letters requiring them to move by the 15th of September. I will have you know that tomorrow Friday, there should be a court hearing tomorrow rather, and more than likely coming out of that hearing tomorrow, we will get a sense of which direction this issue is turning to. I will let you know that the residents, those that are affected at this present time, they have asked the court for an extension of 6 months. The Tobago House of Assembly agreed with that extension of 6 months because that will allow us the opportunity to, in the most humane way, facilitate people being moved.
Right. Now, I hope all you know about a concept called tantra, right? With tantra, it is increase the heat, and then after that, it is just kind of let go and simmer. And so this evening, I'm going and raise the temperature, and then after that, I'm going to let it go and simmer until we get down to the end. So yes, THA hot right now, and THA hot with Bacchs. But the first thing I want to talk about is the airport in Tobago. The government has been attempting to fix, upgrade, and expand Tobago's airport. And I want to explain something to all you. Yes, Rion, correct. 6 months cost overrun, because I may have to play over this clip from Farley for you to understand something. 3 years now, before the pandemic, right? So well before the pandemic, consultations were held. The government started to do the expansion and the upgrade of the airport. I want all you to grasp this. Tobago's greatest sector, the sector that it does make the most amount of contribution to our GDP, is what sector? Let me hear all your class, because school in session. Let me hear all you. The most important sector in Tobago is the tourism sector. A couple of years ago, back in 2015, 2016, when they wanted to sort out sandals, everybody cried on sandals to the point where Bud Stewart decide he taking his brand and he going somewhere else. So Tobago could not end up having a fancy resort type, right? An upscale fancy resort type hotel that would have allowed for an increase in tourism on the island. The current government, which would have been the then government, thereafter decided, okay, we certainly have to upgrade the airport because it is a small airport. Everybody knows the airport in Tobago. So they want the airport to be an expanded, enhanced 5-star airport because they're looking to encourage tourists from across a wide spectrum. Explain to me how you will know that tourism, whether it is international tourism or domestic tourism, you know that tourism is your mainstay. You know that tourism is your bread and butter sector. How you go and want an expanded, upgraded airport? And so what has been taking place since 2019 to now is that the people who have homes or property around the airport have been stolen because they have been trying to get in the best possible price they could get from the state for the properties. And the state is at the point where it has settled, and according to the court ruling that happened on Friday, the court has ruled that the state can proceed with the airport. Now, one of the things that I found interesting in all of this is Farley Augustine went around telling people publicly that the THA is responsible for airports. And you see, when you don't know your own laws and legislation, anybody could talk and say things and fool you. There are several things, there are several areas that the THA may be responsible for, but there are a couple key areas that central government, because remember we don't have the government of Tobago and the government of Trinidad. You have the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a twin island republic. And national security, major infrastructure, what's the other thing? National security, infrastructure, and of course there's a major aspect of finance. Those are the things. So like collection of monies and that kind of thing. Those are the things that fall under central government. So the THA not responsible for building an airport. If the THA was responsible for building an airport, they would have been building an airport. The airport is currently being built by a state enterprise, NIDCO. And it is NIDCO who is negotiating and facilitating things with the property owners who have lands around the airport, who have decided they're going to block progress at all costs. Now, to me, if you don't want an expanded airport, come out and say you don't want an expanded airport. But when you are doing what you are doing, we end up with years of cost overrun. So apart from paying people for land, we also have to keep paying the contractors for delays in the project. So this project that may have started off at whatever price, like we said the project was $10. They budget the project at $10. The project has now ballooned way beyond the $10 because of all the cost overrun. So the court case happened, the matter was heard, it was heard on Friday, and the state has won. The state can now proceed. I wanted to start with that. Now, one of the things I want to point out to all is this. You see this meeting here, this press conference here that Farley talking at? Because I know since today is what, Sunday, since Wednesday, Thursday, when the bacchanal start to bust with THA, we back and forth with video and voice note and this and that and the other. You see this press conference? This press conference had all the information, all you could possibly need about where it went down with that THA bacchanal. So we will be coming back to a clip from this press conference, because this press conference have all the source in it. All the source was in that press conference. So we're going to be coming back to that. So that is the airport situation, the Tobago airport. So we talk about budget, we talk about Tobago airport. Now let's talk about this front page here. This front page was important. And it was important on a number of levels. It was important because, one, the Commission of Inquiry has started. Two, what was revealed in our Commission of Inquiry requires us to understand process in this place. And it is necessary for us to understand process in this place because, as I talk about process with where this story is concerned, we go into, when we get down to the THA bacchanal that everybody show up on the live for, we will be talking about process even more. So the chairman, QC Lynch, said that he would have pointed out that the commission, the secretariat for the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy, or the Paria LMCS diving tragedy, would have that they were not properly they're not properly supported. Now, I felt that Express owed the country a particular degree of responsibility. I felt that as a newspaper, as the media, it wasn't just your job to tell people that this is what QC Lynch said. I felt that it was also their job to find out who was actually responsible, or which entity was actually responsible for providing the Secretariat with what they needed to provide the Secretariat with. So they put it up, shameful start, because of course they want to dog the Commission of Inquiry. Everybody wants to undermine this Commission of Inquiry. As a matter of fact, people trying to undermine this Commission of Inquiry long before the Commission of Inquiry started. But I will say this, we have moments where our public servants just be shooting the country in its own foot. I'm going to say it again. We, us, the public servants, because I work the way I work with the University of the West Indies, technically I'm like a quasi-public servant, right? Public servants here just drag the flag at times. So when QC Lynch come out and talk about how they ain't have pencil and paper and chairs, desk and chairs, listen, I feel all kind of shame, all kind of shame, because I thinking to myself, all you bring commissioners here from Ohio, whether it's Jamaica or the United Kingdom, because he has a British accent, but he's Jamaican, he's of Jamaican extract. So all you bring this gentleman here to function as the chair of a Commission of Inquiry. All you set up a Commission of Inquiry, and all you make sure that all you provide the Commission of Inquiry with all of the things that they're going to need to be able to function efficiently. So of course, in the same day, the Commission of Inquiry started 10 o'clock in the morning, and the Office of the Attorney General had a press conference 2:30 the same afternoon. But it was about something different. It was nothing to do with the Paria issue at all. But media, because you know how media here is, all them interested in is running with the Bacchs. They're not interested in bringing no facts to you at all. So media run up hot and sweaty in the press conference and asking the AG if he was responsible for pen and pencil and eraser and rubber and paper clip and them kind of thing. So he said, no, it's not me. But he also made an erroneous statement. He said that it was the Office of the President. I can understand why the AG made that statement, because commissions of inquiry receive their appointments from the Office of the President. So of course he is there thinking, if they're receiving their information from, if their instruments, from the Office of the President, chances are it's the Office of the President that is entirely responsible for them. But no, that's not how it goes. The Office of the President provides the instruments of appointment, right? So they get their instruments to function in Trinidad and Tobago from the Office of the President. But it is the public servants in the Office of the Prime Minister who are meant to provide administrative support to these commissions. So when I find that out, because I had to ask some questions, when I eventually get the answer, and the question I asked was basic. Who is responsible for providing support to a commission like this? And the answer I get back is, it has to be the administrative staff. Because I then asked, is it the responsibility of the minister in the ministry? Because of course Stuart Young's name got mentioned, and they indicated no, it's not a minister's job to run and get pen and pencil, to run and get chairs, to be organizing those things. You have to have the accounting officers and the staff of the accounting officer. So when in the commission of inquiry, QC Lynch says that things happened because Minister Stuart Young stepped in and arranged things last minute. That's not Stuart Young work. Stuart Young is supposed to be running to get chairs. He is not Stuart Young tent rentals and stationary supplies. So this is why I have to say, public servants, pull up all your socks, because that was a bad look. It was actually a shameful start. I felt that media needed to make it clear who exactly was responsible. It wasn't enough to come one day and have a headline saying shameful start. The next day it was important to let the public understand what exactly the process was. So the PS, right, and the PS in the Office of the Prime Minister would actually be the lead permanent secretary in the country, right, the chief permanent secretary in the country. The chief permanent secretary in the country, the most senior permanent secretary in the country, was the person who was responsible for ensuring that this commission of inquiry got the support that it required. And they dropped the ball. And I'm going to say this, better than that. Better than that. Because their whole staff of people. It's not just one person. It's a whole range of persons. And if Ole can't get something as basic as that done, if you can't get something as basic as that executed, right? Pen and pencil and table and chair. Seriously though? Right. So that is the commissioner inquiry. Was there anything else on that I wanted to talk about, boy? Oh, the AG talked about the firearms audit. And so I was glad that the front page had that thing about the firearms audit, because of course we can't talk about the firearms audit and ain't talk about my good partner, Shagari. So the Prime Minister would have, about a month ago, at a press conference say, no, it was not a press conference, it would have been at a PNM meeting, at a political meeting, say that Gary Griffith was one of the worst mistakes he make in this life. And I will say this, when you don't choose your men wisely, you just end up being very disappointed. So the Prime Minister, going forward, needs to choose his men wisely. So that way, once he chooses his men wisely, he is not going to be in a situation where the man had to disappoint him. When a man disappoints you, it is hot. And it is hot bad. And so I want to say to the Prime Minister, going forward, find out about the man backstory. Talk to whoever was with the man before. Find out from them who was with the man before what caliber man he is. Find out what kind of habits he have. Find out if he's capable of toxic behavior. Find out if he's the sort of person who does lie, right? Find out if he's the sort of person who abusive, who aggressive, who have some sort of psychological disorder. Ask question, dig up, do background check. Make the person do a lie detector test. Don't let them show up for the lie detector test and then don't do the lie detector test, right? Let them go through all of the psychological evaluations. Let them do everything they need to do, because you know what? This country cannot afford for you to not choose your men wisely. When you don't choose your men wisely, he does end up with Shagari, right? So Shagari, here the Prime Minister say that he, the Prime Minister, very disappointed, right? Gary was one of the worst mistakes he make in life. And I feel we're probably going to hear that it had a worse mistake than Gary. But anyhow, we're sticking with Gary, Shagari, the worst mistake. So, you make your mistake with Gary. You come out, you admit to your mistake. And I have to say this, it takes a big man to come and say, you know what, I make a mistake and it was a bad mistake. And I'm looking to fix, to amend the fact that I make them mistake. Then the Prime Minister announced that, he have a FUL report. And listen, true to form is like Gary edges get snatched. You see how we here looking in this picture? You see how we here looking in this picture? Because his whole edges, everything gets snatched. Somebody snatched Shagari wig. And Shagari was up in arms, toting feelings all over the place, trying to block this report. So an injunction has been filed. He would have filed it through his attorney, Larry Lala. And the Office of the Attorney General decided that there are so many persons that the report might affect, that the advice that they have given is that all of the persons who are likely to be negatively affected by the report are to be given the opportunity to respond to the report before the report is put into the public domain. What I also hope happens is that a sanitized version or a redacted version of the report, where no names are necessarily named, that gets put into the public domain. I'm hoping that something like that happens. But based on what has happened, what has transpired in the courts, and from what the Office of the Attorney General has said, that report is not going to be laid in Parliament anytime soon. They have to make sure that they follow due process. So I wanted you all to be aware of that, so that you have an update on Shagari and the snatching of his edges. And I'm going to remind everybody, choose your men and them wisely, right? Or rather, I'm going to remind the Prime Minister, because it's really the Prime Minister I want to send this message to. Choose your men and them wisely. When you choose fellas like that, we just suffer, and we really want to suffer, right? Shagari was stress. Shagari was real stress. So all you know, Shagari launched a party, right? Which of course amuses me, because Gary wants to be the head of a political party, or he is the head of a political party, but he also wants to be the head of the police service again, because he's applied to be the commissioner of police. And I said to myself, look at the tag on, look at the caption for this picture. NTA's plan to make Trinidad and Tobago safe. And look who sit down in the NTA audience. Disaster lawyer Chandler, who on charges. So, I mean, look at the characters. Look at the characters. So, right. So that is that. Let's move forward now. So, of course, I mean, like the first major topic. So all of that was just us recapping news, right? The first major topic this evening is, of course, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. So I wanted to start that off. I wanted us to start that off properly, right? Oh my goodness, did I forget to download this? Give me a second. We had to do this proper.
Queen Elizabeth II was more than just a head of state. She was a calm, reassuring voice of hope that stood with the world in tough times. For her years of love, kindness, and dedication to the Commonwealth, we will always be grateful. Today, on behalf of opposition members of Parliament and members of the United National Congress, I offer our sincere condolences to the royal family and to the British people in this time of mourning. Queen Elizabeth II was more than just a head of state. She was a calm, reassuring voice of hope.
Listen, you see when people write your speech for you and you didn't practice the speech before you go and deliver the speech, that is how you just end up saying things like Queen Elizabeth II, right? Not Queen Elizabeth II, you know, Queen Elizabeth II. And then head of stage and people. I think the leader of the opposition, who sees herself as a prime minister in waiting, needs to come to Parliament prepared. Whether that means you are coming to Parliament sober and dry and having looked at the documents and papers in front of you, you need to come prepared. I think it is an insult and a slap in the face to the rest of the nation that you repeatedly show up to the Parliament and you are never prepared for the job that you are doing. I waiting for the day Kamala question anybody else about work and work ethic, because she has no work ethic at all. She's not in a position to talk to anybody about their work ethic, because this is Kamala conduct.
It stood with the world in tough times. For her years of love, kindness, and dedication to the Commonwealth, we will always be grateful. Today, on behalf of opposition members of Parliament and members of the United National Congress, I offer our sincere condolences to the royal family and to the British people in this time of mourning. Queen Elizabeth II was more than just a head of state. She was a
pressure, yes. Condolences was an issue. British people was an issue. I know what to say about Kamala again. So right, so we need to talk about this. Oh, I need to smaller up this, or I'm bigging myself, right? So this is Queen Elizabeth when she was crowned queen, and of course recently when she celebrated being on the throne, you know, for 70 years. And I want to start by, I'm going to talk about this from a personal sort of perspective. Queen Elizabeth II died, and in my family, my father, when he was 7 years old, he saw the Queen when he was 7 years old. The Queen has been in Trinidad a couple times since, so this is in 1962, right? In 1962 he saw the Queen, and he would have been 7 years old, and he was on the side of the street, you know, with all of the other little children waving flags and whatever. I would have been alive for 2 visits from Queen Elizabeth. For neither of those visits was I standing on the side of the road. So she's been here about 3 times, but my dad was here for 1 because he migrated, and I was here for 2 of the occasions that she arrived in Trinidad and Tobago. And he and I have 2 very different positions on the monarchy and the crown. I say all of that to say this. Some people are mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth II, or should I say Queen Elizabeth II? No, I'm going to be respectful. Queen Elizabeth II. Some people are mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and other people are not mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth II. I think anybody's passing needs to be looked at with reverence or treated with reverence. But I don't have a lot of warm feelings for the crown or the British monarchy or any of those things. But I feel that because it is such a complex issue, we needed to pause for a couple seconds. Prior to the passing of the Queen, we would have had Independence Day here. And around the time of independence, there was a loud conversation, argument actually, taking place. You had people who are pro-independence, who felt we have a lot to celebrate, we have achievements that we need to mark. And you had people who are still anti-independence, saying often that we've done nothing in 60 years, we've achieved nothing in 60 years, and actually acting as if they wish to return to being colonized. And what I've realized is that for a lot of people, they think that colonization is only linked to enslavement. They don't see that colonization continued after enslavement, that colonization is very much linked to indenture, and colonization is very much linked to what is happening to us here in the 21st century. And so you have to ask yourself, when you think about the crown, what does the crown represent to you? Do you think of the crown as representing things like grace and poise and royalty and pomp and wealth? And if it does represent those things to you, where do you think the pomp and wealth came from? What do you think allows the crown to have wielded the power it wielded back in the day and to continue to wield power now? It's the money that it would have earned from enslavement and from the transatlantic slave trade. And then eventually, even after it put an end to enslavement and the slave trade, the wealth that it continued to acquire from invading other countries and exploiting those countries and extracting wealth from those countries. So you have, for me, when I think about the royalty, when I think about royalty, when I think about the monarchy, when I think about the crown, I think about genocide. I think about whole groups of people dying, whole groups of people being wiped out. I think about 20 million West Africans being traded. I think about all of the countries in Africa, all of the countries in Asia and the Caribbean and other parts of the world that have been colonized, that have had imposed on them institutionalized racism, that have had their resources, whether it's minerals, jewels, or people, be extracted and taken away. So this morning, my father and I were having that conversation, and he's asking me, how do I feel about Elizabeth's passing? And I say those things, and he was like, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I said, well, I want you to tell me how you were thinking about it. And he started telling me about his experience as a little boy waving the flag when the Queen visited. And so I realized that different generations have a different relationship with the crown and with the monarchy. And we need to respect that different generations have a different relationship with the crown, with royalty, with the monarchy. I think for my father's generation, it's always going to be a bittersweet sort of relationship. I think with my generation, certainly with me, having been raised the way in which I was raised and having been educated in the way in which I've been educated, I don't really have time for the monarchy. There's nothing in it for me. And when he asked about, whether or not I was, in mourning over the issue, I said, well, my head of state is the president. We have been a republic since 1976. And 1976 is a whole year before I was born. So we have been a republic for a longer period of time than I have been alive. So I am aware of the president. And of course, for me, it would be Sir Ellis Clark. I grew up knowing Sir Ellis Clark as the president, and then after that, Nur Hassan Ali and Ian R. Robinson. So I don't think of the Queen in the same way that my dad thinks about the Queen. I didn't really feel anything when she passed. I just felt like, okay, you were around for 90-something years of life, and you made no effort to apologize for what your ancestors did with respect to enslavement and the slave trade. You made no effort to speed up the whole reparations process for any of the countries I was talking about reparations. And you also held on after all this time to things that really and truly are not yours to hold on to. None of the artifacts. So I don't really have, I can respect that other people want to grieve and not poke fun at them, but my position is a different position. And I don't think that he's going to be any different from his mom. In all fairness, I think he is going to continue the exact same traditions as his mother and hold on to the same foolishness as his mother. So maybe God save the king, but what I can say is the king means nothing to me, because I live in the Republic of the government. I live in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, right? And I'm very happy about that. I'm very proud about that. And to the persons who tend to think we have nothing to celebrate here, I beg to differ. We have a lot that we have accomplished in 60 years. We have figured out how to expand education so that it reaches more people. We have figured out how to begin to have a healthcare system that offers a lot more services to the wider population. One of these days, I will sit here and talk to you all about the history of healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago and let all you know what the Brits put in place with respect to healthcare on the island of Trinidad, right? It was one hospital. Imagine you have an entire island. You have estates all over the country, and you have one hospital. And the one hospital in Port of Spain, because the point of having the hospital in Port of Spain was to service the elite classes, right? So I will eventually talk about that. But I just want to say education, healthcare, our social security, the social safety net measures that we've put in place, the number of other things. Why is it not jumping into my head right now? And of course, the fact that we became a republic. I also think that within the last 20 years, there's been a lot of very innovative changes that have taken place within the country. But I don't need to go into all of those things right now. But yes, I felt that, there was a lot that we've done here and a lot that we have to celebrate. But there's also a lot that we need to work on. And we will continue to work on those things. So, right. So that is that there with, Charles and Lizzie and Kamala and She Heavy Tom. Next thing now is this. So we going back to Kamala again, eh? It's like I can't help myself, boy. Why I can't help myself? So let me go and find that clip. Let me find that clip. Right. Let me find that clip and let me switch the screen there to the clip.
You have to support your party. You say you support country before party. Well, go to hell. Go to hell. You have to support your party. You say you support country before party. Well, go to hell. Go to hell. You have to support your party. You say you support country before party. Well, go to hell. Go to hell.
So, I needed to talk about Miss Party Before Country. Because when that whole bacchanal about Party Before Country happened, remember it would have been a situation where the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development would have held a meeting, and he would have invited the regional corporations, only the PNM regional corporations turned up. Then there was the lone Mr. Sankar, who showed up, and she was so upset about it that when she did the Monday night forum meeting, she was adamant, party before country, and anybody who is not supporting party before country, go to hell. So I want to also get into something else. There was a scandal that took place, and when that scandal took place, there's a lot that the country, I felt, didn't understand about the scandal. So let me talk about that scandal a little bit. Y'all remember this couple, right? Y'all recognize this couple? Who is the couple? So this is Prime Minister Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, and this is his wife, Mrs. Sharon Rowley. And just around the time that I would have gone on break in August, a big bacchanal broke out. The Prime Minister would have been, was he just back from having gone on the trip? In any case, the United National Congress, or persons from the United National Congress, actually, you know what, me had to pour water in my mouth. Senator Anil Roberts, who is the most horned person nationally in this country. And we all know about it because we all saw the video. I still have the video, as a matter of fact. But I didn't feel that I needed to show that video to the rest of the world at this point in time, because I don't believe in slut shaming, and I don't believe in putting videos out there of women in compromising positions. And since in the video it was clearly consensual between the two persons that was in the video, me feel that I need to loud up the two persons that was in the video doing something that they clearly wanted to be doing together. But Anil Roberts, who would have dealt with his own amount of public embarrassment with respect to Horn, came out and made a statement that he is yet to be able to substantiate. And in making that statement that he was never able to substantiate, he decided to drag this lady's name in the mud, right? So I'm going to put this picture up. And the reason I put in this picture up is, apart from the picture that they would have circulated, the fake picture of the East Indian police officer, Motilal Dema, they circulated this picture. But let me show you the version of the picture that they circulated. Or rather, let me just explain, because I don't have the old version of the picture. No, I'm not running no video, Debbie Marquise. If you want, you could go on Pornhub and look for it, because I feel it starring on Pornhub. But me putting up no picture of anybody getting the time of their life on my life, right? Because I don't want my life to get blocked or banned anywhere. So the gentleman at the back, the light-skinned fellow with the nice beard and stuff at the back, they cropped out the picture to just show Mrs. Rowley next to that gentleman. And they were circulating that picture all throughout their network, right? Because the United National Congress has a very, very robust WhatsApp network. So plenty times when you're seeing things coming back to you that's saying forwarded many times, invariably that would have been circulated on the United National Congress's WhatsApp database. Their WhatsApp database is extremely robust. So they will send things out and it going out to, tens of thousands of people, and it gets circulated, and it gets circulated very quickly. So they put that picture up of Mrs. Rowley and this gentleman. And that gentleman actually reached out to me to indicate to me, 1, he is a lawyer. 2, this was a legal event. It was lawyers for cricket. It was some lawyers for cricket event that took place. 3, he is a colleague of Mrs. Rowley. 4, he is a happily married person who had to wake up one morning seeing pictures of himself circulating all over the place. 5, this event took place in 2017. So the United National Congress would have sent somebody on social media to look for images of Mrs. Rowley next to some Indian man. And then they would crop the pictures of Mrs. Rowley next to some Indian man. And they would circulate the pictures of Mrs. Rowley next to an Indian man. And then they would have Anil Roberts come and say that he has heard that the Prime Minister being horned and make all kinds of nasty comments about who greasy and who not greasy, and who the horn from and who the horn not from. Now, the entire fiasco when it took place was very distasteful. It left a bitter aftertaste in everybody's mouth and had people up in their fields. And of course, Trinidadians being Trinidadians, everybody was sharing this thing left, right, and center. And I had people flying into my inbox to ask me if it's true and if it's true and if it's true and if I see who the man is. And there are a number of things that I had to say to people. And the number of things are this. One, Mrs. Rowley is not a political figure. So that means she's not a public figure in the strictest sense of the word. The reason she has been thrown into the limelight is that her husband is a public figure. We don't have a position called the First Lady in Trinidad and Tobago. We don't have a First Lady in Trinidad and Tobago. So her husband, Dr. Rowley, would have gotten instruments of appointment to become the Prime Minister. She is the wife of the Prime Minister. And because she is the wife of the Prime Minister, that is what puts her in the spotlight. But she's not elected. She's not a public official. She is, for all intents and purposes, a private attorney. Right? A professional woman who is a private attorney. And we, the public, and I'm saying we, because everybody was part and parcel of the conversation at that point in time, we chose to circulate pictures or to circulate talk that led to dragging the name and reputation of a private person who functions as an attorney, a private professional woman. We dragged her reputation through the mud for a week or two. So you have to ask yourself, why was it important to the United National Congress that they drag Mrs. Rowley's reputation through the mud for 2 weeks? Because this thing lasted for 2 weeks. Something that was easily that was easily dismissed, that was easily debunked, right? The whole story was very, very, very quickly debunked, but people continued to be sharing and to be asking and to be circulating left, right, and center and running with the gossip and persisting with the gossip. Why do you think it was necessary? And I want to remind you all, in all of that, none of the gendered organizations in this country stepped up to say anything about it. Not one of the gendered organizations. Not Gender Institute at QEII, not Womantra, not, WINAD. None of the gender organizations in this country stepped up to say anything about the dragging of a professional attorney's name, a private professional attorney's name, through the mud based on nothing but rumor and hearsay. So let me explain to all you why it was so important to drag Sharon Rowley's name through the mud. Let me put this picture back up, right, so you can have Kamla Prasad Bissessa. And I'm making sure I put Kamla picture up there. Kamla Prasad Bissessa, who does remind everybody that she's a national mother and grandmother. She would have been in a position back then where one of the senior members of her party was under some pressure. So to be able to tell this story, I need to jump back a little bit. We're in 2022. Back in 2021, a man get catch with a car, right? You know, we in this country just allow different exemptions and allowances, right? So a man had a car, a man bringing an expensive car. When I tell you the car expensive, it's hot expensive. But when he bring in the expensive car, he keep the car to use. So he bring in this expensive car, but he not using the expensive car. He give one a partner the expensive car. Now he bring in the car and he get the exemptions on this expensive car. And he give his partner the car. The talk is, tongue say, the partner is a financier of this goodly lady's party, right? The other thing too is, tongue say that the partner, the fellow who get the expensive car, is also a good friend, a good bosom buddy of a former commissioner in this country. So when the mark was about to bust, because what was going on was, men was being asked questions, and it had one person, actually no, two people were being questioned overseas. Well, you remember it had a rumor running around at a point in time where people was claiming that the prime minister was being questioned overseas. It wasn't the prime minister that was being questioned overseas. Is two other key people, right, linked to a fancy car, was being questioned overseas, right? And when they reached back here, the TTPS here was asking them questions as well. As a matter of fact, my understanding is, since last year, charges supposed to be laid. But when you're good friend with all kind of people in high places, right, who don't want their wig snatch and thing, when you're good friend with them, things just get delayed, paperwork just get pushed wrong, things just get shrug wrong. So, my understanding is, when police started to ask questions again here, to distract the population from what was taking place, they decide to make a bacchanal about the prime minister's wife. Why? Because if they made the bacchanal about the prime minister's wife, they'd have the whole country up in arms about that rumor. And when the whole country up in arms about that rumor and running with that rumor, so if any story land in the papers about anybody receiving charges or anything like that, there would be less focus on that story, because this story about Horn would have been far juicier. And that is what led Olia to take a professional female lawyer, good name, and run it through the mud, because Olia like gossip. And this is why I fed up tell Olia need to stop running with the gossip, because all of that is Cambridge Analytica tactics that Kamlan and just be hitting Olia with every single time. And listen, without fail, it is working. Without fail. Distraction after distraction after distraction. And there was a story, Denise Wren, who has since left Trinidad and Tobago to go and work in the Turks and Caicos. She would have put a story in the papers. It would have been one of the last set of stories that she did about the MP and about the possibility of charges where this MP was concerned. So all you keep all your eyes open and all your mouth hushed, right? That's all you need to do. Stop love the confusion. Stop love the set of old talk and the set of gossip, and pay attention to things some more. That's what you need to start to do. Pay attention to things some more. And stop running to ask me, this true? Because my job is not to come and tell all you whether gossip is true or not. That's not my responsibility. It is definitely not my responsibility. And now we come to the part of the program that Ole was looking forward to. Farley luck and barley luck. And I need Ole to listen very carefully. And the reason I need Ole to listen very carefully is this. Every single thing, all of the information that we needed to be able to understand what was going on with this Tobago House of Assembly fiasco and the $400,000 and Watson Duke and Farley and Shopping Topping, all of the information was in the public domain. But again, because our media so worthless, it was never aired or re-aired for you all to see. So I am going to play a clip, and I'm going to play. The clip is a long clip. It's 10 minutes long, but I'm going to stop from time to time. I'm going to stop the clip from time to time to talk all you through a couple things. Because Farley himself, the chief secretary himself, explained the entire situation right after Watson Duke make the bacchanal. So the first live Watson do from wherever in Brooklyn, right after he do that live. So if that live did bust, say, the Wednesday morning, by the Wednesday afternoon, Farley had done a whole interview where he covered a number of issues, and that is one of the issues he covered. And Farley talked for a good 10 to 15 minutes about this Watson Duke issue. So everything was there. So all them voice note, all you have, and all the video and all the other things, all you even need to have any of those things, because Farley gave all of the details at this press conference. So let me start. Let me start. And let me position myself up here so that I could talk all you through the things.
So a video presentation from the Deputy Chief Secretary from somewhere in Brooklyn late yesterday evening online. And I want to bring some clarity to this space. So all and sundry will be very mindful of the THA's commitment to the Roxborough folk performers, and I will also speak a bit to the THA's policy in terms of assisting and helping groups that need assistance, whether it's to travel or whether it is for some engagement in and out of the Tobago space. In fact, even yesterday.
Right. So the first thing, the minute he say Roxborough folk performers, that ought to have tipped you all off immediately. So Roxborough folk performers is what will let you know that Vanilla Toppin Allen or Allen Toppin, Shopping Toppin, tied up in this. And I don't know how many of you all remember Shopping Toppin, but Shopping Toppin is one of those persons where she boy. Vanilla name was in all kind of bacchanal. Lotto bacchanal, credit card bacchanal, is all kind of bacchanal. Vanilla name was in between 2010 and 2015, right? The 63 months that the United National Congress, the People's Partnership was in charge of governments here. So Farley, in his presentation, immediately points out a couple things. One is the Roxborough group, the Roxborough performers, which lets you know that the issue is Vanilla Allen Shopping Toppin. And later on, you will begin to realize that there is a link between Shopping Toppin and Watson Duke, and that the THA is doing a lot of funding of travel. And that is where my eyebrow and them started to reach up to my hairline when I started to hear about how much travel going on and how the travel taking place. People traveling, and after they have left Tobago is when they're applying for money, and that is not how it is supposed to take place. For you to get funding from a state entity here, you're supposed to apply prior, so that the state entity could check to see if there is budget, if there's money for those things in the assigned vote. But let me go back to the video and continue to play it.
They were discussing a group of young people who are in the DR, the Dominican Republic, as we speak. They're in the Dominican Republic representing Tobago in sports, and the tickets and pay for, they trust the travel agency. And so...
You just hear that? That they are Tobagonians in the Dominican Republic, right? Athletes in the Dominican Republic. They trust the tickets, and then after they trust the tickets, they're looking to get support from the THA to purchase the tickets on them.
They're coming to us for assistance. And you have to understand as well, with COVID and the nature of the Tobago business community, sometimes getting that assistance is difficult, and the only option is really and truly the Tobago House of Assembly.
So what we're understanding here thus far, based on what Farley is saying, is that the Tobago House of Assembly is doing a lot of funding of travel for people who are going abroad to represent Tobago, right? And in several instances, they are making their travel arrangements first, and then after they have made their travel arrangements, they are reaching out to the THA. To my understanding, that is not how access to the public purse is meant to take place. That is not the proper process and protocol. But let us continue.
Provide assistance. And so the Roxborough Folk Performance approached the Tobago Assembly for assistance because they had several engagements that they were called out for to perform in and around the tri-state area in New York, in and around the Labor Day festivities. And we felt, yes, this marries nicely with our push for involving and engaging members of the diaspora. And if you heard the Deputy Chief Secretary speak at Tobago Day, you will hear him speak to a lot of the issues members of the diaspora are facing and the fact that we need to engage them much more. And we want you members of the diaspora to return home and invest in your island. In fact, you should be our first set of people, the first group of people in line to invest in your island, Tobago. And
so he is careful to say all of the things that he is saying here because, of course, earlier that morning, everybody would have seen the video from Watson Duke, where Watson was basically accusing Farley of not caring about Tobagonians and leaving Tobagonians stranded. So Farley starts off talking about it by indicating we have been providing support to Tobagonians. It have Tobagonians who traveling and going to events, and after they travel and reach to the event, that is when they're applying for money or they're asking for money. We are aware of things that are taking place and we are providing support to Tobagonians. That is what he is making clear here thus far.
And so we said, okay, that marries nicely. We had a group of entrepreneurs, in fact, agro-processors that went out to New York before and they did some work. We have fashion designers who are going, the group of entrepreneurs.
So let me give all this a story with them fashion designers and them. A partner of mine was on Twitter and he found a tweet that was very interesting. Let me see if I find the tweet. Right. So a fellow named Darren Bart, and he goes by the Twitter handle of Trini Bart. Remember Farley just say in the video that they send some fashion designers up to New York, right? That the THA fund fashion designers. Trini Bart says, story time. So a couple designers didn't get their visas and couldn't make it to show their collection. I was asked if I knew anyone heading New York. Of course I said, send me. So mad dash, and here I am coordinating and showing on behalf of the Tobago designers who couldn't make it. I want all to understand something. You had designers from Tobago who decide that they want to attend New York Fashion Week. They did not have visas to go up to the United States, but they made arrangements to be at New York Fashion Week. They make arrangements for the clothes to reach up to New York, right? And when the time come, they didn't have visas in place. They didn't have other arrangements in place. So they had to ask a Trinidadian person who have visa to go up to New York and represent Tobagonian designers, because the Tobagonian designers couldn't reach up to New York. So of course I have questions. Who pay for this young man's ticket to go up to represent the designers? Were the the designers get funds released to them from the THA before they had to travel? And how is it they didn't organize and arrange to have their visa and all of their travel documents in place before things occurred? Right? So let me go back to Farley.
Didn't ask the THA for monetary assistance, but they asked us to assist in talking with the embassy for them to get visas, and that was provided. We have a group of fashion designers who will be featured within the New York Fashion Week, and they will even have a Tobago booth there. Young fashion designers, they are doing that, representing their island, Tobago. And of course, we had the Roxborough Folk Performers that had these engagements to perform in New York. I had a meeting with the principals at Roxborough Folk Performers, led by Mrs. Vanilla Allen Toppin, about 2 months or so ago.
Right. So, this is where the things start to get sweet. Because up to this point, this is only 3 minutes in, and remember this whole clip I have here for is about 11 minutes long. 3 minutes in, he goes from saying Roxborough Folk Performers to saying Vanilla Allen Toppin, right? So now we know it's Vanilla Allen Toppin. And he also indicates that he would have spoken to her 2 months prior to the event. So now all you're beginning to get a timeline. So we hear about Bacchanal this week here, which is it would have been the first week of September. So 2 months before that, telling you that since July, them having conversations about this event. Let us proceed.
She attended the meeting with 3 other members of the team. In fact, it was a team of about 30 desiring to go to New York. 27 eventually went. When I met with Mrs. Allen Toppin, I indicated clearly that the THA could not fund 100% of them getting to and from New York.
So 2 months prior to the event, according to the chief secretary, he is saying that he told Shopping Toppin and her group that the THA can't fund 100% of their trip, right? They could do a partial funding, not 100% funding of the trip. Let us proceed.
Well, not just getting to and from New York, but 100% of the entire trip. I was assured then that they weren't looking for the THA to give 100%. They were looking for the THA to help get them there.
Right. According to the chief secretary, he was assured that they wasn't looking for 100% from the THA. They was looking for help to get there. And to get there, to me, comes across as meaning tickets, right? Airline tickets to get them across to the United States.
They raised with me that their priority area, of course, would be getting tickets to get to New York and to get there on time. They too had visa challenges to the point where many members of the team only got through with their visas last week, and they traveled on Saturday.
All you hear that? Many members of the team only get their visas last week. All you know what date the Tobago Day was? Tobago Day was, to the best of my knowledge, the 28th of August, you know. The 28th of August. So if Tobago Day up in New York was the 28th of August, how on earth could this group of people decide that they're traveling last week after the Tobago Day celebrations in New York happened?
Today and Sunday. So think about that, getting through your visa a mere 48 hours or so before having to travel, which is a really tight timeline. And for groups wishing to travel, especially to the US, you have to understand that at this time, the US, I'm not speaking on behalf of the embassy, but the embassy has quite a backlog of people trying to get appointments because they were closed for some years. And so it's not a given that if the THA writes and asks that somehow you will magically get the visa. No, it doesn't work like that. The issuing of visas from the embassy is the sole priority and prerogative of the US embassy and their employees there. That's not a THA business at all. But anyway, some of them got their arrangements done, the visas last week. And so 27 left between Saturday, some left on Saturday, some left on Sunday. The timelines were so tight that there was no way the THA could have issued any checks for their departure. And in any case, this administration has a policy where we prefer to pay invoices as opposed to just giving monies to groups. So you come as a group and you say, okay, I need assistance to get some balls or to get some uniforms, or I need assistance to go to Trinidad. Instead of giving you the group the money to go and do it, we prefer to pay for the service. Because what we have found is that sometimes you give groups monies and they ain't go anywhere.
Right. So I know that earlier today, it would have aired on the 7 o'clock news this evening. The Roxborough Folk Performers would have said that they didn't receive any check from the THA, right? And I believe that they didn't receive a check from the THA because I believe that the THA paid for their airfare. And how the payment for airfare will go is the THA would make the arrangements via the airline. So no check have to go to the group. The check will go to the airline, whichever airline. So it may easily be Cal or whomever. So if it's Cal they had set up the flights with, the THA would then do a PO, a purchase order, for Caribbean Airlines. If it is correct money fee, you see, it have people who understand corporate governance here. Once you understand how corporate governances function, if people apply for the money in the correct fashion, no actual cash does have to touch people's hand unless they are being paid a per diem directly or anything or something like that. So, or they're being paid for having done a service. So in a situation like this, where they have asked for assistance with airline tickets, the THA don't have to put money in the group's hand. The THA could do a purchase order directly to whichever airline or whichever travel agent, whichever travel agent would have been organizing the flights for them. So I believe the group that the THA didn't give them any money, but I want the group to come out and state clearly and explicitly that the THA didn't pay for any airline tickets, because it ain't hard to find out them thing, right? You do a FOI request and you could find out what the THA spend money on. As a matter of fact, the budget coming up, draft estimates and line item please, right? So you could get questions to pass through the parliament to ask whether or not money was spent on sending people to New York for Tobago Day, and how much money, and whether it was airline tickets and how the airline tickets were paid for. So I believe Farley when he say he gives support to a certain amount of money, and I also believe the group when they say they ain't get cash, because I feel quite certain that it was a purchase order that would have been passed on either to an airline or to a travel agent to cover the cost of the tickets. But let us continue.
Or less people, and they tell you will be going, actually attended, and no accountability is given for the extra sums of monies and that kind of thing. And so it's a similar arrangement. But because the timelines were so short, we had to eventually give a promissory note to the travel agency that we will settle the bill in order for them to be able to leave here. Before the team left here, Mrs. Allen Toppin assured us that she had their accommodation booked and everything was in place for where they were to stay. Sometime on Sunday, I was alerted by the head of team, that's the group that hosts the Tobago Day and the Tobago festivities in New York every year. I was alerted by the president of that group that they came in, they were calling the host at the bed and breakfast, and they got no answer. They got there in the night and they just couldn't get into the place. The place was locked up, and eventually a church rescued them and allowed them to sleep in the church for the night. So when I heard that, I said, but we can't, notwithstanding the fact that I said to this group, we can't fund all of your exploits in the US. I said, you know what? We can't allow Tobagonians to sleep on the streets. By this time on Sunday, somebody gave them a basement that was not prepared to host visitors, and certainly not 27 visitors. So, be that as it may, I worked out an arrangement with the president of team that we would provide some accommodation for them. That accommodation for the entire...
That is an important thing. So this group called team, that I believe is in the United States. So it's a Tobago group in the United States. The chief secretary worked out an arrangement with team for team to provide accommodations and for team to provide food. So I want all you to understand this. Team obviously not going to be doing those things for free, right? So if the THA or the chief secretary, and he's also the secretary of finance, so that's important, the Secretary of Finance, who is the Chief Secretary, reach out to team and say to team, I want all through all you, organize accommodations and organize catering for them, and we the THA will pay all you. What does that tell you? Does it not tell you that after the group reach up to Tobago, based on what the Chief Secretary has said, the THA was then arranging to cover meals and accommodation for the Tobagonians that would have gone and gotten themselves stranded in Brooklyn. So let us continue.
The entire group came up to $9,000, which...
So accommodation for the group, $9,000. As a matter of fact, let me replay this a little bit.
Arrangement with the president of team that we would provide some accommodation for them. That accommodation for the entire group came up to $9,000, which we gave a commitment to pay. And we had someone in the US pay it on our behalf with the hope of being refunded by the THA.
Are you all hearing this? People who understand how corporate governance works. People who understand how it is applied to get money out of a vote in a ministry. All you're hearing with is I hearing here that the group reach up Tobago. They get stranded. And the THA reach out to a group called Team in Brooklyn and ask Team to provide housing for them. It come up to $9,000. Somebody pay the $9,000 and the THA now hoping to be able to reimburse the person for the $9,000. And all of this happened in a press conference, and it ain't reached the papers yet, you know. All of this happened in a press conference. The Chief Secretary stand up in a press conference and say all of this, and it ain't reached the papers yet. Let us continue.
And of course, that is risky because you know the THA does operate. When THA owe your money, it takes long to give her your money. But be that as it may, that was all in an effort to ensure that this team in the US, the Roxbury Folk Performers, that they were able to at least find some place decent to sleep and be able to go on their errands and meet their appointments, the appointments that were required for them across the period that they were there. Because at the end of the day, they are Tobagonians out there. And let me correct a misconception. The THA did not send them. The THA sponsored their trip to the US.
So if the THA didn't send them, and if the THA was a part sponsor, right? And I believe, based on what he said here, the tickets, why the THA going to retroactively pay for their accommodations up in Tobago? And how they working out that paperwork? How they working out that paperwork?
If the THA is to send anybody to the US, the THA has to pay per diem per person. We know that. So we did not send them, but we part sponsor them. And I'll tell you how this experience will result in some policy changes. You see, you live and you learn. Now,
what amuses me here is Farley is saying that this experience is going to result in some policy changes. To the best of my knowledge, it ain't need no policy change, because what he is describing here is not policy. This is not how the public sector works. I cannot pick up myself and run off to the United States and then ask the Tourism Development Corporation in Trinidad to sponsor my ticket and to sponsor my per diem. There is no way me as a performer could just pick up myself, go to an event, and then after the fact asking the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to sponsor me. Pay ticket, pay per diem, pay board, pay lodging, right? So I am not understanding what is being described here at all. And this is the Secretary for Finance who is describing this, and I'm thinking to myself, but this is not the process in our public sector. Is it that the THA have a different process to the rest of the public sector?
I will tell you that for the flights to and from New York and their accommodation together, everything so far comes up to $400,417.50. So this is a $400,000 commitment from the THA to this single group. Remember, we also have several other groups, and I already explained that to them, because we have groups you need to give some subsidies to. I'm looking at Tobago football, I'm looking at cricket, and I'm saying we need to increase the amount of subsidies to these organizations so that they can run their activities well. We have groups traveling all over the place, and we're trying to...
What I'm trying to understand at this point now is, how is it, given the fact that these groups are doing things retroactively, right? They having the events, or they're going to events and afterwards asking for funding or expecting funding. How are you telling me that as the Secretary for Finance of the THA, you are going to be giving these groups more money? None of these groups have displayed thus far, based on what he's saying. These groups haven't displayed an ability to follow process, to follow proper corporate governance. So you have groups that doing whatever it is they want with respect to accessing funding from the THA, and you're going to give them more money? That's not making sense to me. What would make sense to me is that you try to get everybody streamlined and following proper process with respect to public funding. And then once they have begun to follow proper process with respect to public funding, then you reward those groups that are actually following process. Because in a situation like this, are they providing invoices? Are they providing accounts? How are they accounting for the money? How the THA accounting for the money that is passing out to people to do these things?
Help some here, some there, but for nobody are we trying to give 100% of the cost. We're trying to help. And so yesterday at around 5:34 p.m., yesterday at 5:45 p.m., while we were just rounding up Executive Council meeting yesterday evening, the Deputy Chief Secretary called and indicated that some of the members, that they're struggling to be able to purchase food.
So the Deputy Chief Sec is, to the best of my knowledge, Watson Duke. So Watson Duke calls Farley to tell Farley, people in the Tobagonians stranded in Brooklyn need money for food. So all you're hearing it for all yourself, THA pay for tickets, or THA offered to pay for tickets. Let me put it that way. THA then offered to pay for accommodation. Now you're going to hear about food.
And so I said, but how is that the case? Because if you're a group and you're going, and I communicated to you in person that we're part sponsoring this thing, I would think that for the things that we're not covering, you will try to cover yourself. But then he indicated that, of course, when they came in and the place they booked wasn't available, and I in fact spoke to Mrs. Allen Toppin after I spoke with the DCS, and she indicated that the host of the facility where they were supposed to sleep at only called us sometime the next day to say that she was at a party somewhere and didn't hear the phone ringing. Right? We did not make any bookings for anybody because it's not a THA-owned trip. It's Roxborough folk performers going out to New York. Yes, they're representing Tobago there, and that is what justifies us giving them some support. But certainly, it has to be with good measure. But not...
Well, I hear the process thus far. The Deputy Chief Sec call the Chief Sec and say, these people in these stranded Tobagonians need money for food. That's the process, you know. that's the process. Let me continue.
Standing the DCS call and complained about the fact that while they could not find accommodation, some of the members used their monies to go and pay for some places to stay, and so now they were running short of monies for their own meals. Mrs. Allen Toppin indicated to me that they travel to and from each of the places for performance. That travel is being taken care of the hosts of these events. And I think they were even at some function for the Guyanese recently as well. So not just Tobago-based functions they're at, but a across the Caribbean. So the hosts are providing their transportation and they receive meals wherever they go to perform. Subsequent to that conversation with the Deputy Chief Secretary, I took it upon myself again to call the head of team and said to him, look, the people there and some of them, they're having some challenges getting some food. Do you have anybody within your organization that is a certified caterer, registered caterer, at least to provide 1 or 2 meals to them? A good breakfast and maybe something light in the evening, because if they're out during the day performing, then they have no need for lunch or breakfast, lunch where they are. And where we eventually got for them to stay is a place that is not providing complimentary breakfast. Let me say that. So they really and truly have to pay for whatever they need to eat while they're there. I eventually got that quote sometime after 8, after 9 last night, while I was in yet another meeting, because after I left Exec Council that hour yesterday evening, eventually left the office after 7, I still went to another meeting. In fact, yeah, close to 8 o'clock, I still went to another meeting that finished after 10 in the night. And perhaps that is why I'm struggling to get the voice back. I need to take a little sleep.
You notice he talked about getting the catering and he talked about he eventually get the quote. Up to now, I ain't hear what the quote is. Right? So I'm waiting, I'm hoping at some point in time here, because it only have a minute again to go, that I will hear what was the quote for the food.
Somewhere. But be that as it may, so I'm trying to work this thing out so at least they get some sense of relief. I went to the extreme of starting to call some people to now beg on their behalf. Because if you know how the THA works, the THA are no cash sitting down nowhere about to take up and go on Western Union to anybody. The THA is not in a position that you could just get up and say, here, look, cash. That's not how it works. All the spend must be contingent on Executive Council minutes that will give the authority for the spend.
You hear what you just said there? All the spend is dependent on minutes from the council, right? Executive Council minutes. So when I am hearing that you call team tell you is $9,000 for accommodation, Vanilla then call you and tell you people need to be able to eat, they can't eat, they have nothing to eat. Or no, not Vanilla. The Deputy Chief Sec call you and tell you people had to eat, they can't eat, they have nothing to eat. Then you call back the head of team to find out if anything could be done with respect to food, etc., etc., etc. And you get a quote, but you didn't tell me what the quote is. And then you're coming to talk about Executive Council minutes. So when exactly the Executive Council minutes going to get prepared? After you have gone about authorizing payment for all of these things? After you've given the undertaking to pay for the catering, to pay for the accommodations. And remember, at the start of this video, at the start of this part of the interview, he said that he and Vanilla spoke 2 months before they actually went to Tobago, went up to Brooklyn. So the 2 months before the trip took place, since July, he and Vanilla talk about it. And he tell Vanilla that all he going to be doing is offering partial sponsorship. And she said that's all they need, partial sponsorship. And then you're coming down now in the first week of September to hear the THA would have covered tickets, the THA covering accommodation, the THA covering food. What the THA didn't pay for?
All. And so outside of an Exec Council minute to authorize this new engagement, and I have to tell you, to facilitate the accommodation, I had to bounce it off the executive in order to be able to facilitate that decision. It can't just be, I just decided we're going to spend the money. That's all. I'm Secretary of Finance. That is not how it works. Certainly not.
So what I like is, every single time he talks about lack of process in spending, he then says, but that is not how it is working inside the THA. So, Farley, you need to understand, you have to pick a struggle here. You cannot in one breath be saying that all you're not following any corporate governance process that I am aware of, And then after that, after you have described this process that following any corporate governance rules, then come and say, that is not how it is working in the THA. Because you for yourself just say, you call somebody to ask them to pay for accommodations and then the THA going to reimburse them. How is that process? Which part of corporate governance is that? What is going on there? So how do you do that and then come and say, but that is not how the THA does work? Because you just tell us that is how the THA functioning. You explain earlier on in the same interview, people picking up themselves and going to other places and then reaching out to the THA for funding. But then coming to say, that is not how the THA does work. The THA not sitting, they ain't sitting down on cash and could Western Union money to people. But it coming across as if there is a lot of retroactive requests for funds and retroactive approval for said funds. So where exactly the THA does do and don't do? That's what I trying to figure out here. Because now, me and lying to tell you, I have big concerns about the carnival that's supposed to be coming. Big concerns. But let him finish. Because it's only 30 seconds again.
In my administration, maybe before, but not now. Maybe in another place, but not here in Tobago. That is not how that works. Due diligence is required, and there are some procedural steps that must be followed.
Farley had the goal to say due diligence is required and there are steps that must be followed, yes? So after this press conference, and I hope you all understand something, that is how many? That is 14 minutes I play for all day. This whole story was already out in the public domain. And not one media house went and find this interview and pull out the various parts, the pertinent parts of the interview and play it for the public to hear. So when afterwards, screenshot going around, voice note going around, I saying, but Farley said all of this already in a press conference. How it is people acting like they know. And that is when I realized that a lot of folks and no media house had put out this press conference, made this press conference public, right? Now I telling earlier, if the Minister of Finance was to stand up and answer questions about spending, the way Farley stand up and answer them questions about spending, we would drag him, and rightfully so. Because that is not how you are meant to handle public funds. But there is one last video I want to play. And after that, we could wrap up shop and all you could go about all your business, because it is almost 9 o'clock and people had to go to school. They had to get themselves and the children prepared for school tomorrow. So let me listen to this last video, just 2 minutes from this video, and then after that, we done, right? We wrapping things up.
Tobago, Trinidad, the region, the wider world, this is what's in due political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. On last week, Thursday, I'm clear an atrocity was committed against the Progressive Democratic Patriots by the Chief Secretary of the Tobago State Assembly, who is a member of that party. He would have made an attack that was less than kind and that was not child's play. He sought to bring the party into disrepute and made a mockery out of the political leaders' overture for 27 Tobagonians to be fed, who were in the dire straits. Regardless of how persons may twist and turn the issue on social media, it was a humanitarian issue.
It is not a humanitarian issue. And this is the first thing that I want to address in what Watson Duke is saying here. It is a public accountability and transparency issue because it is public funds. And based on what Farley himself said, based on what the Chief Secretary himself said, and that is why I make sure and play the Chief Secretary interview on that particular thing. Right? Me ain't bothered, me cut it up and take out thing or anything like that. So it's a long interview, but I pulled out 15 minutes, right? I pull out a 15-minute chunk for you to hear his explanation of the entire issue. So when Watson Duke wants to come and make as if Tobagonians went up to represent Tobago on behalf of the THA and found themselves stranded and not being dealt with, that is not what took place at all, based on what the self-same Chief Secretary just said. But a little later down here, Duke is going to say something about responsibility and accountability that I find very disturbing. So let's listen.
And it was a direct appeal to the Tobago House of Assembly, who was sitting at that point in time in Executive Council, to make a decision on this and say, okay, political leader, we will deal with this issue. And so a small issue spiraling out into a larger issue seems to be a storm in a teacup. And for some folks, this cannot be the issue, and you're right. It cannot be the issue. It is not just the issue. The real substantive issue is the fact that the Chief Secretary and some of his executive officers of the THA have shown total disrespect and disdain for the Progressive Democratic Patriots executive.
Does Duke remind you of Kamla Prasad Bissessa there? Party before country? Because that's the thing that struck me when he pointed out that Farley was showing disrespect to the party. He is now going to say a couple more very interesting things.
This party was the one who sponsored all of them and placed all of them into government. Since they have entered into the THA, they have refused to meet the executive. They have refused to discuss with the executive what are the mandates they have taken from the party and are now trying to form into policy. They have refused to treat with the party in a respectful manner and also in a submissive manner. Around the world, it's a known.
So he wants the executive of the THA, he wants the people in the THA who really and truly supposed to be answerable to the accountable, held to account by the public and by various state entities, right? Checks and balances like the Auditor General and the Parliament. He wants the THA to be answering to the PDP. The THA, you know, he wants the Legislative Assembly of Tobago to be answering to and submissive to the PDP. Only listening to the level of madness that this man is saying.
Fact that party drives government, not government drives the party. The party must answer to the people.
Party drives governments, not governments answering to parties. So in his mind, the government had to answer to the party. The party is who in charge.
And the politicians must answer to the party. Again, I repeat, the party must answer to the people and the politicians answer to the party. In this case, the PDP must answer to the people of Tobago and the THA must answer to the PDP because the PDP represents it.
Are you hearing that? The THA must answer to the PDP, you know. That just come out his mouth, you know. As if the PDP as a political entity is in some way some arm of the state, right? Some check and balance, some you know, like how we have the Police Complaints Authority and how we have the Integrity Commission. Watson Duke is acting as if the PDP, he political party that he own, where he kick out whoever it is he want to kick out whenever he feel to kick out people. The THA must answer to the PDP, right? The THA accountable to the PDP. I hope all listening to the things coming out of Watson Duke mouth, you know, because it has had people quick to talk about who is dictator and what is dictator and a dictatorship and dictator, and then after that turn around to talk about give Watson a chance, you know.
People, this is a social contract spoken of in the Constitution. This is a social contract that a citizen engages in with the government. I am of the firm view that this matter does not rest and it will not sleep until the PDP executive has been given the respect it deserves and it should get. The Chief Secretary.
So you hear that? This matter not going to rest until the PDP has gotten the respect that it deserves from the THA. And so that is how Watson Duke gets to the point where he writes a letter that he puts out into the public domain revoking Farley's position as deputy political leader inside the THA. So that's where we reach. That is where we reach. And that's what's going on. And so I need all you to understand something. If Watson Duke, as political leader of the PDP, could remove and fire whoever it is he feel like removing and firing from within his party at will, and he thinks that the THA has to answer to him, what do you really think going on inside it? All you pick sense or nonsense? Now I understand that Tobagonians are of the opinion that we on this island have no say in what is going on there. And that's fine if that's the position you want to hold. But I just want people to understand something. Public funds is public funds. Public funds is not you alone funds. Public funds is the public funds. And you can't be doing whatever it is you want with public funds. You cannot be doing whatever it is you want with public funds. And if this is how the PDP is conducting its affairs in Tobago, and the PDP has decided that it wants to extend itself into Trinidad and Tobago, I am hopeful that the electorate watching, paying attention, and making assessment of what is taking place in front of them. Anyhow, folks, it is 9:01. There was something I wanted to address. Monifi made a point where she said that what we're seeing happening in the THA happens in other public institutions. And I'm not going to say no. What I will also add is this. Farley and they campaigned saying that those kinds of things wasn't going to happen under them. And now it is. So I'm not going to act as if anything that happening under Farley is new. What I will say is, Farley tell us this wasn't going to be happening under him. So you all have yourselves a good week. I will see you all next weekend. Enjoy. A little too loud there, sorry. I will see you all next week Sunday. Enjoy, take care, and it's nice to be back.